Welcome, everybody. Tuesday night, show and share. It's always a great time and a good crowd tonight. So our show and shares are all about things that you've made, that you're making, or you've had problems making. So on our presentations, we want to try and keep it to 3 minutes or less, things that you make. If you have a project that maybe took a lot longer to make and you have a lot more to share, no problem. We have something called lightning talks. We'd love to hear longer presentations about how you did your project. And those are other specials after the normal show and share. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and get us started. Patrick Miller, you're going to show us some Krampuses.
This is going to be scary. Hi, everybody. I'm Patrick, new guy. But let's see. My girlfriend asked me if I could sculpt, and I said yes, but I was lying. And so, yeah, absolutely, honey. So I ran into the bathroom and hopped on Google and watched some videos. And let's see, the Zoom is...
Okay, so the answer is yes, you can sculpt.
As it turns out, I can sculpt. Okay, and this is polymer clay, like Sculpey. I didn't know what that was. And there's the tin foil or aluminum foil, just kind of built it up, as we can see. Yeah, and she's like, okay, can you make a mold of that? And I said, yeah. And then I went in the bathroom again. And then ran to Home Depot after I got out of the bathroom. And so anyway, this was a bigger project than I'd thought. I just had like some scraps of flashing and sort of made the outline of what the cramp eye should be. And kind of worried about bubbles as it was cooling. This stuff's really good, smooth on, AB, I forget whatever it's a 2-part silicone mold, and it was really, really easy to work with. I got the longest work time, but that also means like a lot of bubbles. So this was like hot glue, I have a hot glue gun, we'll travel, so hot glued cardboard buttresses just to make sure everything stayed there, and got the Theragun and sort of taped it on the side and let it go all night to get all the bubbles out. And so, okay, well, what are we gonna do with it then? Let's pour some, I don't know, went to Walmart again and got some plaster of Paris. Put a little thing in the back, but we got some problems with it because it breaks real easy. So I don't really know what to do about that. And so I got on YouTube again, and they said try some white glue in there with the mixture. All right, but as we can see, it's too many bubbles and it's mushy. So that didn't work. Very, very pocked, right? And so then we tried resin with some mica, and so I don't know, that worked pretty well, but it's super textured, so the back side's prettier than the front side, so I don't know what to do about that. So it's like I failed successfully, and if anybody's got any ideas on how to do this better, I'd like to hear it. And then there's the plaster, and that's just the DAP plaster from Walmart, like the plaster of Paris. Is there like a stronger type? Does anybody know? I don't know. I ran out of bathroom breaks, so anyway, that's a success and a failure. Questions? Wait. Yes.
What did you use as a mold release?
I didn't. First try. It'll never happen again.
What, the rest of you didn't have to use anything?
No, I didn't.
Are you familiar with Johnny Good, the ultimatepapermache.com website?
Oh, wait. Let's see. The older lady does the animals.
Yeah, the old
Yeah, okay. All righty.
fantastic, and she strengthens, at least one of her formulas is strengthening paper mache with toilet paper.
All right.
Dissolve it in there and mix it, and then acts as fiber to hold it.
Okay. I will.
She's perfected her formulas over the years, so I don't know what her most recent recommendation is.
Ooh-wee. Okay.
Excellent.
Well, I will certainly check that out. Yeah. Okay.
Ultimatepapermache.com.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you. Blue shirt.
I was gonna say, did you try putting any fibers or reinforcement into your plaster?
No, I didn't. I just sort of mixed it up and poured it and shake it, get all the bubbles out. And I don't.
And then,
Fibers such as toilet paper.
you could use, toilet paper, you could use, small, like, you can get like, small, nylon, if you put, so so I work in concrete, you guys will hear about that
Okay.
when I share.
Oh boy.
But they use fiber reinforcement, they use steel reinforcement, and they're just little fibers that are, yay long.
Oh, okay.
That you can put up in the mix.
Well, that's cool. All right.
With it being so artistic, putting, strategically placing fibers like,
Right.
like steel reinforcement or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. See, I kind of tried that, but that wasn't as All right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
You know, the various epoxy companies that make marine epoxy for laminating and they have very different, big selection of powders you can add. Some extend them, some make them more dense.
Oh, okay.
And so there's one that's like cotton fibers. And,
Much like the nylon.
and all-purpose, it's very strong, mixed with epoxy, it's white. Then they have, Cavasil, which is fumed amorphous silica, which is dangerous. You need to wear
Bless you.
a mask or work in a place that's well ventilated.
Right, okay.
That you get white lung.
I don't want to.
But it's incredible in terms of making it thixotropic. It will make epoxy thick where you can take a spatula and put it on the ceiling and come back and it looks exactly like you left it.
Okay.
So depending on how much you put in, but it's not very expensive.
Thixotropic.
You just mix a little with plaster of Paris.
Oh.
I don't know how long you have with plaster of Paris when you're mixing.
I don't know.
Start to set
I mean, long enough.
Yeah. So those would be interesting to look into, like West System, WEST, wood epoxy saturation technique.
Okay.
Company, it's been around for like 40 years, and they make a lot of these additives.
Okay. Well, yeah, I will definitely check that out. Thank you. Anybody in the back?
Plaster of Paris is terrible. I recommend hydrostone or hydrocal.
Hydrostone. Okay. Yeah, plaster of Paris is terrible. Yeah. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
Nowadays, they used to use horsehair, and you can also use human hair.
Where are you getting all this human hair? That was wild. What?
All right, it hasn't been asked yet, but, how long did it take you to make, your original mold?
Each step. Let's see. The original mold. It was a few hours. I mean, it wasn't. It really wasn't all that bad. Kind of surprised myself, which is nice. That doesn't happen too often. But yeah, the aluminum foil really helps and cuts down on wasting the polymer clay, which is not cheap, and use day old pasta roller to roll it out thin, and I'm sure anybody uses that knows that. Yes.
How did your girlfriend like it?
Oh, she got super mad.
Because you could do all these things after?
Yes, yeah, she's a super jealous type, but
Did you try to visit the restroom afterwards?
do what? I was I'll get my own beer, thank you. Jeez, tough crowd. But, okay. Pack up my cramp. We can pass these around. Anybody want to check it out? Can if you want.
So while you're picking up the rest of your stuff, I want to make an announcement. This is Sue as the Fiber Arts Zerini. Scissors from Fiber Arts are for material and fabric. They are not for wire. They are not for 3D filament. They are for fabric. Please don't make me put in a safe that has a combo on it. Thank you. All right, I feel better now. Only certain ones, but not the fabric ones. Smarty pants. So next up, we have Gabe with a hand-wired mechanical keyboard.
So more accurately, this is the brutalized remains of a hand-wired mechanical keyboard. I made this a couple years ago when I was still living in Florida. This was my first time doing it. It was a lot of fun, learned a lot. I started by 3D printing a plate and then a case. And this is basically just a bunch of diodes kind of wired in a grid pattern. So you basically can get an XY signal so that you can suss out which key is being pressed. So what this ran on was I think this is a Teensy 2. It's a little Arduino type microcontroller. It took me quite a while to figure out how to actually, once I had it all put together, it took me a while to figure out how to get firmware onto it to make it a usable keyboard. And then once I triumphed there, I realized it was horrifically uncomfortable because of how thick the case was, which is now why it's in pieces, because I'm trying to redo this. I initially was going to try, I kind of went too hard on this. I was like, I'm going to hand-wire a mechanical keyboard, and I'm going to use keycaps that don't have any letters on them, and I'm going to learn a new keyboard layout, and it's horrifically uncomfortable. But so the project now is kind of to take all this further apart so that I can reuse the switches in another keyboard. I'm not sure what I'm going to try to make it out of. I am going to try to use this same form factor, though. This is a 40% keyboard, so it's roughly 40% of what would be on a normal keyboard. And the alignment with the perfectly vertical keys, that's called an ortholinear layout. It's helpful for certain like hand and wrist issues, people say. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But yeah, any questions about that?
The base is 3D printed?
Yes, and the case that went around the backside was 3D printed as well. And that was actually the main problem, is that with it being 3D printed, you need to have some amount of rigidity here so that it's not just constantly flexing under your fingers, and it still kind of is. But to get a usable rigidity, you need to have a really thick plate and then a really thick case as well. And so this thing with the keycaps on it was probably like 1.5 inches tall, which, you know, when you're sitting there trying to type it's not fun. Yep.
Which keyboard layout did you choose to?
So I jumped in real hardcore, and I was like, okay, unprinted keycaps, and we're gonna learn Dvorak with a bunch of key bindings and chordings and stuff like that. So not a good idea. I'm gonna go a little bit slower this time. You know, trial by fire didn't quite work out, but. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, Gabe. I personally have an ergonomic keyboard, and as soon as I put my hands on that split keyboard, I knew I was comfortable. So I can't imagine the straight keys. Yeah. And it being smaller than a normal keyboard, too. Yes. Well, next up, we have Jonathan with a metal basket.
All right, guys. So my name's Jonathan, and I made this wonderful metal basket. I'm going to tell you guys about that pretty quickly. I work for a cement manufacturer, and I help my customers do some different testing on some of their materials. And one of my customers asked me to figure out the specific gravity of a material. So when you make a concrete, like for ready mix, you put everything and you batch it all by volume instead of by weight, but you use the specific gravity to transfer between your volume to your weight, because it's a lot easier to measure things on a scale than it is for volume when you're putting stuff up. So I went through the ASTM standard to figure out how to do this, and it says you need one of these baskets, and I went to go look to see how much these baskets cost, and they're about $150 to $250, and they're 2 to 3 weeks out before I get one. And so I said, well, I can order some mesh on Amazon for $15 and we'll figure it out. And I got baling wire at home. So so I went through and took the baling wire, put it up, and yeah. I can't just zoom in on my phone. No. So I went and got baling wire. It was like $15 for this, and I went through and made my baling wire, and I made little staples. And I started off taking the staples. It's really hard to see, but pushing them through and then just twisting them. And I didn't like that because I'm making something for work, so I have to think about safety, and sticking my hand in there with all those little twisties is just asking for me to cut myself. So I went back and revamped it, and you guys can look at it later. But I took the same staples, I put them in, twisted them down, and then took a hammer and smashed them down to get them flat. After that, getting at the bottom, I went and cut, every 10 notches so that I could get it into a cylinder, and then cut out another piece to lay on the bottom. And I took one of the strands and used that to just kind of weave it together on the bottom to make the basket. So the final contraption. So I didn't need too many tools, just the basics. But the final contraption looked like this, and you essentially just gonna take your aggregate. You're going to put it in here, and you're going to do a whole bunch of other stuff to it first. But at the end of the day, you put the aggregate in here. You put it on a scale, a device that's attached to a scale, and then you suspend it in water, and that tells you how much difference the specific gravity of it is compared to water, which is easy because water is 1. And you get to do all of your math. And so I was able to do all the calculations and figure everything out for my customer and send it off to them. So $15 and a half day worth of work, Any questions? Yeah.
So, I mean, is the idea like that you want the aggregate to be properly suspended within the mix so it doesn't all seep down, or?
So you're without getting into the weeds on this, the whole goal is to find out how much volume this takes up, and to take that volume and transmit it to a weight. So when it's, because there's air voids, it's not solid, like, so there's empty space in between here, so you can't put this all in 1 cubic foot and say this is it, because if you consolidate it one way, you can fit more material in it, or if you just dump it in loosely, you'll have less material. So by instead of measuring it out per volume, you measure it out per weight, and you use the weight of water. The cubic weight of water is known, so how much weight this displaces in water tells you how much more this is compared to water. So specific gravity is just a ratio of how much this is compared to water, and we can do all the math to figure out how to batch it up.
Are they gonna give you a raise or what?
No, my boss found out, he probably would have told me to just order it and wait. That's right.
You could submit the whole bill.
Oh yeah, no, he paid for the mesh. He paid for the mesh.
Who knew? Wow. Next up, we have Donald with a small, scale model boat.
So I'm Donald, and I made this 44-foot, Coast Guard 44-foot motor lifeboat, scale model, radio-controlled boat. And as my wife commonly refers to it as a toy, I said it is not a toy. I think she just doesn't push my butt. I told her I've never seen anyone under the age of 40 holding one of these, and I'm proof right now to show you that. So it required quite a bit of work. It's been about 15 years in the making, because I bought it 5 years before I retired and put it under the bed, and I told my wife when I retire I'm going to build this. And 10 years later it's done, and I said, see, I told you. It just took some time. But it's interesting because it works with metal. I used the metal shop, the fabric art shop, the wood shop, the craft shop, and the electronics shop to build it. And I also used the knowledge of everybody here. I mean, it really, it takes a village. Joe Hall helped me with cutting, learning the metal work to cut the propeller shafts. Isaac helped me with an electronics question to get the propellers counter-rotating. I used like I said, the Fabric Arts Electronics. I used their soldering gun. I hope I'm allowed to do that without being authorized, but to put the motors in. So it's got 2 twin motors that counter-rotate, and it's got a servo, and I can take it all apart for you later and show it to you, and an electronic speed control. And I took it out before I did all the detail, took it out on just like a first voyage, see if it worked, make sure it didn't leak. We took it over to World's Fair Park at that pond over there. That's a great place to run a boat. And we ran around there and it worked, and so then I continued with all the rest of the work. Some of the parts were provided, it's a kit. The bottom of it is fiberglass with a gel coat finish, just like a real boat, although it's painted. And so some of the parts came with the boat. Some of the parts I made for the boat by hand. Some of the parts I ordered to get more accurate scaled parts. And I added quite a bit more detail than the plans called for, and changed a few things around. They had it modeled after about a 1960 version. This is a more modern version. So yeah, it was a labor of love, to say the least. So, that's it. I got any questions for? Yes.
How fast does it go?
That's a good question. I don't know. It goes fairly fast. It goes, I would say, at a scale speed. In other words, it doesn't race like a racing boat.
Right.
And I added some weight to the front to slow it down too. I haven't rerun it. And now it's ready to go, and it'll be over at World's Fair Park next Tuesday, I think. So. Yeah.
What's the total weight on it now?
I didn't weigh it, but it's only a few pounds. It's pretty light.
Like your
It's fine.
couch.
I think I was here the day you were putting some of the decking in, and you were using sandpaper and painting it black.
Yes.
Right.
One of the things I had to figure out is what would pretend to be scale. I use sandpaper
Yeah.
to act like the non-skid that would be on a real.
The non-skid, yeah. It's great. Next, we have Walter with some updates on his solar plastic recycling project.
Hi. So last month I was here and I was talking about how I'm so jazzed about turning plastic bags into usable bits of plastic. And I said last month I had 2 different ways I was doing that. One of them with a panini press, which was more established, and then a more experimental way with the solar oven. The panini press, I'll get that out of the way. I made a new mold. The new mold broke. I'm not doing it with the panini press anymore because honestly, it's more fun trying to tinker with the solar oven and I want to get nice bricks like this. I can get this with the panini press. I can't get it with the solar oven yet, so that's the one I want to be working with. This one definitely was able to get, oh, there it is. This one was definitely able to get the most cohesion and is the most solid piece of plastic out of what I've had here. But the other thing that I was talking about last month was I really wanted to be able to monitor the temperature inside my solar oven. So I have thrown together a lovely mess of wires, a lovely little box, which inside of is a node MCU, a little display, and then a thermocouple so that I can have it be recording the temperature of the tray that I've been using as my mold for all of these rectangular pieces of plastic, and it'll put that into a Google Sheet every 10 seconds. So while we were at the Makers Market on Sunday, I had too much stuff there. While at the Makers Market, I had this running from about 8 to just about when we got back, and I was able to see that I got up to about 250 degrees Fahrenheit inside the oven, which is within where I needed it to be. However, I didn't stay at that temperature for very long. It got a little cloudy, and the other thing, just to get an idea of what it looks like, because the solar oven just sort of sits in my backyard, which is great, except the sun moves. Oh, my bad. Solar oven just sits in my backyard, which is great, except the sun moves. So definitely moving forward, I want to be able to track the sun and have the solar oven follow the sun. The other issue that I'm having, which makes me a little sad, I tried making it out of styrofoam because I wanted it to be easily replicatable, ideally in a classroom environment. However, the oven is a little bit too hot and it starts to deform the styrofoam as well. I was using some spacers to keep the mold off of the bottom of the oven because it would deform, but the spacers deformed too. And then this is just what it looked like inside there, where you can already see that those spacers were deforming. The other thing that I would like to do is change how that mold is applying the pressure. I think rather than having the weight on top and then pushing down, I'd like to have a bar going through, which could be part of the gimbal for making sure it's pointing at the sun, and then have the weight on the bottom so it's pulling down, so as space is freed up, it's being taken up as soon as it can be. But I'll pass around the little bits of plastic. Definitely, this one is the best one I got out of the oven, but these 3 were all made only using the power of the sun. This one, a panini press, and I sanded it a bit, but it's a fun project. Any questions? A panini press is it's a George Foreman grill that doesn't have the little griddle parts on it, which you're supposed to use to make a fancy sandwich, but I use it. Yes. Yeah. What do I use the bricks for? Ideally, I want to be able to use them as a wood analog. If I can get to the point where I can be producing them consistently like this, but bigger, I could use them, any project that needs wood, I'd like to be able to use it for that, or throw it in a CNC router, being able to have a material that when I'm done machining it, any of the scrap can get made into more material. That's really appealing for me about using the plastic as a material, in that if you treat it the right way, it's infinitely reusable. And then eventually, I'd like to do injection molding with it and 3D printing with it. But those are a way off. I'm still trying to get these out of this. Yeah?
How many bags did it take to make the brick?
How many bags to make the brick? I believe this is, I can tell you right now,
Is it one of those?
this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags. I believe this is around 10 bags. No, less than 10 bags. It's probably closer to 8 bags. Like this, there's a lot of air in it, but it's made up of 5 bags right now. And you can feel the 4 in here, and then there's 1 around it. And they're not completely fused, but fused enough.
Pickup bags. Are those what those
It is exactly what they are, yeah. It is my source of MDPE, medium density polyethylene. All right, thank you so much.
Well, this is definitely one we can get another update in
Oh, yeah.
upcoming months.
I'm trying to keep it to only one month.
All right, next up, we have Doug with some wood. I'll let you explain what kind of wood.
Yeah, so I wrote down wood painting. And if some of you all might have seen me at the event on Sunday, I had just a table off to the side with a bunch of bud vases. I've gone full wood planter this year. But if you all know anything about wood, it does not hold water very well. Oh.
So you can see the whole thing. There we go. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
There we go.
So to put real live leafy plants in it, I'm reduced to making images with wood rather than a physical planter. So this is a marquetry project that I put together a little while ago, and some people were asking how it turned out at the event on Sunday, so I decided to bring it in and show it. It was here in kind of various stages of the process, and then of course once I finished it, I got it out of everybody's way, and so maybe no one saw the finished piece. But marquetry is just, it's working with very thin veneers of wood, and so you can, I'll pass this around, but very thin pieces of different types of wood. And so it's a clear finish, and all of the color that you get is from different species of wood. And so you cut really, I used just a manual knife and cut out, and then a paper cutter for some of these bricks. I was going for a little bit of a brick or tile mosaic look for the leaves. I'm not sure I like it a lot, but, and then a manual cutter to then place all of the pieces together and line your edges up. And so you tape the whole thing up, and the whole thing is a very thin layer, and then you spread an even thin layer of glue onto a plywood backing, and you smack the whole thing down, and then put another board on top and some weight on it and let it sit, and the glue to sit. And then once you put a frame on it, it's kind of an illusion in that sense. You're not really sure how thick all of the pieces are. But yeah. And then I probably have some photos of the process. Just set that there. And I have another one. I probably won't pass it around because it's a little bit heavy, but I'll set both of them on this table out here if you all are interested. There's just a bunch of different wood types there. Let's see. Oh, I guess so this is how they all start. So this is a good example because this is actually twice the size of this, but I have a fairly large cat, and once she stretched out on it, I thought I'm never going to be able to do this, and so I sawed the board in half, and that's where I got the 2 different projects. She's not the most useful assistant. So this is a different project, but it goes through the steps. So you start with different pieces, and you cut them out, and you can see here's the negative space. Match it up so you'll layer the 2 pieces on top of each other and use one line to cut the next piece out of it and then tape them together. And then let's see, that piece was a little planter with 2 leaves, and so you can see how kind of then I cut the other elements, lay them on top, and cut them out into the background wood, and set them in with tape as well. And then glue or tape the whole thing up, so it's just a mass of painter's tape for a minute there. Get it on the plywood backing, and then once you glue it on there and pull all of the tape off, it makes an interesting image in a variety of wood types. So, yeah.
So the base part, is that multiple varieties of wood, or the
Wood-
base, or the planter, the pot, not the leaves, but the
Oh,
pot?
on this one?
Yes.
So it's one type of wood, but what I did was I cut the front part, or the exterior of the planter with the grain going vertically, and I cut the interior with the grain going horizontally. And so in woods that have really strong grain, you can get a kind of directional play to it.
It's definitely a strong grain.
Yeah.
What about this one here, the base design?
So this vase it's actually 2 pieces. So it's kind of a traditional Korean moon jar, so to speak, where if you know what a moon jar is, in Korean ceramics, they actually make a hemisphere, which is the bottom piece, and then a hemisphere, which is the top, and merge them together. And so this is actually, it was just kind of the limitation of the width of the pieces that I had. But if you get close, you can see a line horizontally through the center. So that's 2 different pieces matched up. And then it's a different type of wood that you can see a little sliver of the interior of the jar. And then the leaves are just kind of a smorgasbord of different types of wood. Yeah. Yeah, any other questions? Bless you. Yeah.
The vase here,
Mhm.
that looks like fabric, right?
Oh, okay.
And I think maybe that's where you were going with it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Doug. So that's all the people that have signed up to share. Any others that maybe didn't get to this before I grabbed it? Yes, sir, come on up.
All right, I talked, it's been 2 or 3 weeks, about my aluminum casting system that I'd put together with the vacuum chamber and everything. And I actually did it. Now, it didn't come out perfectly. It's got some porosity, some may or may not be bubbles in it. I don't think they're bubbles because I had the aluminum temperature really high, and what happens is when you pour the aluminum in there, it's so hot that when it cools, it contracts, and it has all these weird breaks in it. And there's also this. It looks like a little whirlpool where it pulls inward. So, but anyway, I only have one because this took, I'd say probably like a day or 2, like 24-hour period to make. because it goes from, I used, for the pattern, I printed on my 3D printer, I made some, I printed the model, and it's this special type of resin that vaporizes when it gets to a certain temperature. That's upside down. There's the pattern for the actual part, and I just had some wax sprue material, which is kind of the inlet. So you pour the metal and it goes up like that. And that little rubber bottom goes on the flask. And there's it inside. And then what I did was I put the flask in this vegetable steamer, and it melted out the wax, because you can't have the wax inside the kiln when it fires to cure the plaster, because it'll ruin it. I guess I'm going all over the place, but anyway, it's real convoluted, and that's what you end up with is the, okay. So here's my electric foundry where I melted the aluminum down, and the vacuum chamber where the flask goes in, that's got the plaster and the pattern which has been melted out by the kiln. And goodness, I didn't plan this real well. Anyway, so that's the part that I made. And yeah, sorry.
Any questions? You have a question?
Yeah.
What's the part?
It's a piece of a car model that I'm trying to make.
Of what?
A car model I'm trying to build. Yeah. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't been here every week, we've been seeing the progress building this contraption, and now the first part out of it. That's really exciting. It's exciting. Anybody else would like to share? It can be your failures too. I've been seeing a lot of successes up here. Okay, so now we're up to announcements. And I'd like to announce something a little special. It was 10 years ago today that someone joined Knox Makers. Isaac, congratulations. Now that your, face matches your hair a little bit, yeah. I'd like to also invite you up to the mic, if you would please, to say a few words about our event from this weekend, the Maker Market.
Where's the cake?
Thank you very much. I was counting on you to bring the cake. I mean, I wasn't going to bring it up, but. So, yeah, we did this thing on Sunday. I'm happy to say that I saw many of you at the Makers Market. In the last 12 years, Knox Makers has been involved in large public events like that only a couple of times. And we've only tried putting one on ourselves once previous to this. Certainly nothing like a market. And I think that this is the kind of thing that's especially difficult for us because, there's so much logistics, there's so much planning and organization. And frankly, at least as far as I can tell, that part of it is not like super fun. And we're all pretty much here to have fun. And we have a very limited amount of time in our lives to dedicate to this funness. And so it's a big ask to pull something like this off. We had a lot of ways that we could have fallen on our face on Sunday, and we didn't. It was amazing. For those of you who missed it, boy, did you miss it, because basically nothing went wrong. And when do I ever say that? I mean, it was fantastic. We had, at last count, I think it was 492 guests who came here just to see, you know, what we had on offer. We had 40 vendors. I believe about 8 of those were actually Knox Makers members showing off stuff that they had personally made. Everything at the show was handmade, celebrating what we do. I think of the 500 roughly people that came, we gave tours to like 186 of them. That's almost 40% of random people who wanted to come in here and see what type of craziness we were up to. And some of them are here tonight, and that is way cool. So we had, I think, about 18 members who volunteered their time to make all that possible. We had and many of those are in the audience right now, people who are out there in the heat directing traffic and parking, people that were helping the vendors load in and load out, people that were giving the tours, people that were floating, just solving whatever problems came up, and frankly making us look amazing. There's 2 people in particular that I want to recognize. I hope you don't mind. One of them, of course, is David Nelson. As hopefully you know, the whole thing was basically his initiative. He spent a tremendous amount of time and effort working out those logistics ahead of time, and it definitely paid dividends on Sunday. So big ups to him. And the other person I want to mention is Paul McGowan, who was our volunteer coordinator on Sunday. If you were a volunteer, I think you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the whole time he was making sure that we knew what needed to be done. He was sending people where they needed to go. He was making sure that nothing went undone, but he was also making sure that people took breaks and drank water. And that was super important, as wicked hot as it was. So big ups to Paul. He helped a lot. We did do a paper like vendor satisfaction survey at the end of the event, because we were really concerned about, you know, having never done it before, what do people think about all this, you know? And of course we talked to a lot of the vendors, talked to a lot of the visitors, and the response was really overwhelmingly positive. What we heard from people was that our market was better organized, it was running smoother, it was more fun to be at than various long established markets at Knoxville, and they couldn't believe that it was the first time we'd ever done it. And they were eager to do it again. And of course, no sooner did we get the mess cleaned up than people were like, woo, let's do it again. And we're like, oh my God. I don't know when we may actually try and take this on again. Of course, we haven't had time to even tally the results. I'm imagining we probably made a modest profit, but of course that's not entirely the point. I mean, we were seen to be very successful on Sunday. You know, we showed the community some of the stuff that we do, both in terms of the making, but also in terms of the community, in terms of our cohesion and our fellowship, and that made a dynamic impression, I think. And it's hard to say what that's worth, but I think it's worth a lot. You can see that we've made new friends here tonight, and we were contacted by our contact at the Maker City afterwards to congratulate us on a job amazingly well done. And you know, this is somebody that talks to the mayor, so that doesn't hurt, right? So anyway, it was a fantastic time. I'm really appreciative to everybody who was involved in making it so. And if you didn't make it on Sunday, I mean, I know there's a lot of competitions for your time. I totally feel that. But there'll be opportunities to do stuff like this in the future. And I really encourage you to try and make time for it, because just working elbow to elbow with your fellow Knox Makers folks is an amazing feeling. You know, pulling something like this off and knowing that you're pulling up the whole organization, it's a good time. So anyway, thank you all for what you did. I look forward to hanging out and doing more weird stuff with you in the future.
Thank you, Isaac. Next up, we have some classes that a lot of you can just go on to the website, look at events, see the classes coming up. But in case you haven't seen them, there's some woodworking classes coming up August 22nd and 24th. New member onboarding is Thursday, August 18th. I know there'll be another one in a couple more weeks. That's mandatory for people as they come from probationary to regular members. And I believe someone snuck a machining and metal turning class in there today. Yeah.
Is it open yet?
It wasn't before this, but it might be now. I don't know.
To give you an idea, I have an alarm set for when the tickets come on sale.
Aha! So I know there's at least one gone. Yeah. Let's see. And I saw a wood turning class. Now that was only through the end of this month. So go out to the calendar, check it out, see if there's more classes or one that a different one you'd like to go to. If you'd like to teach a class, well, maybe we'll get somebody to teach us how to mold, or Donald, maybe you can help us on some modeling. There were many projects tonight, wood, the inlays, that maybe you're not a super pro at it, but you've done it. Talk to us, help us, so we can learn too. Have a class. We also are an all-volunteer organization. If you would like to volunteer and help us take out the trash or change the air filters tonight, it would be much appreciated. And I'd also like to talk to anybody who wants a tour or would like to learn more. Afterwards, please see somebody with a red badge. We'd be glad to talk to you, give you a tour. And with that, it's time to go out and make and have fun and talk to your other members. Hey.